Hello everybody, my name is Federico and welcome to the final booktube of English Language 2. This time we'll be reviewing two impressive stories of my own choice which are A Tale of Two Series by Charles Dickens and Nightfall by Isaac Asimov. So, let's begin. Beginning with Nightfall, we can say that it's a 1941 short story written by the famous science fiction writer Isaac Asimov. It tells the story of a planet named Lagash, one that doesn't experience nightfall except once every 2049 years. Consisting of six suns, the planet is known for being in a constant state of sunlight until that fateful day. The story revolves around a group of scientists led by 1877, which is the director of Sarah University and chief astronomer who wants to record the eclipse to explain what really happened. Accompanying him is a faculty psychologist named Shirin 501 and a reporter called Thermon 762. The group reviewed the research that has led to the prediction of the eclipse and the chaos that soon followed. Then they discovered that the law of 1 decade after the law of gravitation was released, the, the, the orbits of Lagash were at odds with the laws of physics. On a planet known for its perpetual daylight, the fact that darkness finally arrived generated into its inhabitants a state of panic and fear and claustrophobia, so much that they will burn anything on the way in order to generate light again. To, in order to prevent a catastrophe from happening, the group is determined to prove the real reason of the darkness that has crippled the entire planet. The main character of this story is called 1877, which in my opinion is the most essential one because he's the leader of a group of astronomers that wants to leave a record in the dive of Narg. Physically, 1877 has the typical image of a man in his 70s. He's an individual of an average height, neither fat nor thin, whose wrinkled round face is framed by a mass of short white hair and deep-set brown eyes that show his seriousness and determination as an individual. Speaking of which, his determination is his most striking characteristic, speaking of his personality. During the course of the story, he's focused on one thing in specific, that is, to study the darkness that has crippled Lagash and set its inhabitants in panic, into a frenzy. He's also known for being a strict individual, which is the personality of a true leader, in my opinion. He's the one who, who does the swap of information between the astronomers and the occultists that has led to the announcing of the looming eclipse. He's also known for being a stern individual, especially with the people he commands, as he doesn't accept any incompetence from his subordinates. However, he has a tendency to be conscious and some a moral-driven person, as the orders he gives are not made with bad intentions but with a good purpose, and he's the one who gives the moral of the story. All in all, I think he's a very interesting character that you may like or not, but you cannot deny his importance in the short story. Moving to the second book I read, which is The Tale of Two Series, we can see that it's an 1859 novel written by Charles Dickens, whose events take place before, during, and after the French Revolution, and is split into three different sections as well, which are Recall Alive, the first, the second book called The Golden Thread, and the final book called The Track of a Storm. The first book, Recall to Life, begins in 1775, in the midst of a very turbulent period for both political period for both France and England. Here we met Jerry Cruncher, who is an odd man job working at the door, and, and who is observing a telegram for Jarvis Lorry. Jarvis Lorry, who is a man working at the Telephone Bank. The message instructs him to wait for a young lady where Lorry had bring many years ago as an orphan child. That lady, once arriving at Dover, he met that lady called Lucy Manette, whose father was who he thought whose father was presumed dead, but he was actually alive in France. With this information, they arrive in Paris especially at the wine shop of Madame and Monsieur Defarge, where Mister Marnet was held there as a crippled old man. The both rescue him and bring him back to London. The second book begins on 1780, when a man called Charles Darnay stands in the middle of a trial, after being accused of treason by the English crown. His defender, Sidney Carton, points out several arguments to prove his innocence, stating he has an uncanny resemblance to the defendant. One night after escorting him to a tavern, Carton develops a certain resentment towards Darnay, as he reminds him of everything he has given up. Meanwhile, Darnay breaks up his relationships with his relatives because of his disagreements with their aristocratic status. On, thanks to this, he goes back to London, much to the relatives' disappointment. A year after that, Danny proposes marriage to Lucy, unaware of Carton's proposal. Meanwhile, in Paris, Jerry Cruncher, we have seen just a moment ago, was captured by Defarge's henchman and sent to her wine shop, where she had been in a secret registry of those whom the revolution wants to delete. The final book takes place during and after the events of the French Revolution. After finding out that a prisoner else was being imprisoned, Darnay decides to risk it all and go back to France in order to rescue him, but he ends up being captured by the French revolutionaries as well. Lucy, Laurie, and her father arrive in Paris in order to rescue him, where Dr. Manet uses his former contacts as a prisoner in order to calm down the revolutionaries and spare Darnay's life, but ends up backfiring, as Darnay ends up gets arrested by the Defarges. After his second trial, Darnay is stabbing after his second trial, he's condemned to a 24 to a to a death sentence by a guillotine, where it's up to Lucy and Carton to find him in order to save his life. The main character of this story is Charles Darnay, who in my opinion, he's the most important character of the novel, as the major plotlines. He's the one who incites the major plotlines that will take place during the course of it. Speaking of his appearance, we can say that he's a young adult man in his mid-20s, a tall, well-built individual, able to generate the amazement of those who look at him. His pale round face is framed by a mass of short dark hair and deep-set dark eyes that showcase his nobility as an individual. Speaking of his personality, we can say that Charles Darnay appears to be as a good man due to his actions. He's also seen as a cultured, poised, dignified young man, judging by the way he stands in the courtroom. He's also known for being courageous as well, based on his decision to go back to Paris, despite the big risk he's exposed at in order to save another prisoner. Another good thing he has is his sense of responsibility when he tries to help his former servant. However, one of his biggest flaws is his own self-pity, as he and his own inability to trust people, as he never told anyone about his whereabouts and what he was going to do, not even to his wife Lucy, which makes him feel very remorseful. All in all, he is a very lovable character that you find yourself rooting for or feeling sorry for from the moment you start reading the novel. Finally, to round things up, we're gonna talk about the theme of this novel, the Tale of Two Cities, which is the theme of resurrection. One of the major examples we can find is at the end, where Carton sacrifices himself in order to secure Lucy and Darnay's life. By doing this, he becomes some sort of a Christ-like figure whose death is used to save other people's lives. As in this sense, we can say that his life becomes much more meaningful and valuable. In a similar fashion, we can say that the death of the old regime in France gave way to the new and refound society of Paris that Carton had envisioned after being on the guillotine. This character is very particular because, despite most of the time being consumed by apathy, his selflessness act shows how we can change as individuals and how can we redeem ourselves. And to round things up, we can say that although the book spends much of his time telling the atrocity committed by the French aristocracy, we can say that this violence will give way to a new and profound society, one that we still live during this day, even to this day. So that's all for today. I hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching and see you guys next time. Bye.